Hello everyone and welcome to another review. Today we're going to go ahead and review a fragrance that was released this year in 2015. It's a flanker of another fragrance that was released in 2013, and that fragrance we're going to review today is called Tom Ford's Noir Extreme. Now, this is the bottle and the presentation for it. This is actually the 50 milliliter and it comes in two main sizes, 50 milliliters and 100 milliliters. The 50 milliliter is going to run you $100 even, that's not including tax. And the 100 milliliter is going to run you $140, again, not including tax. So it is definitely more on the expensive side in terms of designer / niche fragrances. I'm not sure what you would want to classify this as, but as many of you know, I don't really care what it's classified as in terms of designer or niche. Now, before I actually get into the review, there is a disclaimer for this. I was actually sent this fragrance from Tom Ford, or I'm sorry, not from Tom Ford himself, but the company Tom Ford to go ahead and review. So I was actually thinking they were going to send me some samples. They ended up sending me a bottle, and so I was like, oh, all right, cool. But the purpose of me actually saying that is, if you do not think that I can be objective with this fragrance, and I say that for anything that I am sent by by a company, then feel free, disregard this video, move on. But if you can't think, or if you do think that I can be objective with this, then please feel free, stay and watch on. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into the notes of this fragrance. The notes of this fragrance consist of, at our top we have mandarin oil, neroli, saffron, cardamom, and nutmeg. For our mid we have coffee, mastia, rose, jasmine, and orange blossom. And for our base we have woody notes, sandalwood, vanilla, and amber. So this fragrance comes off to me as extremely well blended, just because one of the things that I do constantly is pick out notes and try and figure out, okay, what am I smelling here, what am I smelling here, and what am I smelling initially as the day goes on, okay, what am I more smelling now. With this fragrance, it's a little bit hard. I can detect traces of each of the notes that I'm smelling, like I can get a little bit of mandarin, neroli, and a lot of the spices, the saffron, the cardamom, and the nutmeg, but they're all blended together extremely well. So really what I get is a spicy concoction. And that spicy concoction kind of gives way a little bit more florals after it's been on your skin for about an hour or so. And finally, it dies down to this very nice, dark, slightly sweet, woody type of a scent. And overall, the composition of the fragrance comes off as this dark, much more well put together, night out type of a fragrance. It's a fragrance that I would expect to see on a man or a woman in a suit and tie, or that's dressed up in business casual almost, and that's going out. I wouldn't necessarily expect to smell a person, I guess you could say a little bit more casually dressed on that. But I really think that it fits more of the well put together person, which isn't necessarily surprising for a lot of Tom Ford fragrances, as they tend to gear that way for actual scent. Now, overall, it's again, like I said, very well blended, and it comes off as that. It comes off as well as light on the skin. Now, when I say light on the skin, I mean projection wise. I would probably say if you spray it on your skin, it's probably going to project to about here, right? It's not going to be projecting much. It's going to leave a pretty decent sillage trail, like I would say about average, but it's not going to project really heavy. So I would keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily take away from the strength of the fragrance in terms of longevity, because on my skin it lasts between 8 and 11 hours. So you still get great longevity, at least I did. So I've seen some other people have some issues with it, but I didn't have any issues with longevity. The only issue that I had was projection and people, actually smelling me when I'm smelling this fragrance a little bit away. Now, I've also seen this compared to 1 Million, and it's also been compared to Noir de Noir. Noir de Noir, I think, is a really accurate representation. I would say that it feels like Noir de Noir with a much more muted rose, and not as powerful as Noir de Noir. So almost like a toned down version. And that kind of threw me for a little bit, just because with the extreme I was expecting something heavy, especially from the House of Tom Ford, that never shirks on fragrance power and everything like that. So the fact that it was labeled extreme and it comes off as a little bit more subdued to me is a little bit weird. It is a little bit more extreme than the original Noir, but I still don't really quite feel that it deserves the extreme moniker. Now, again, one Noir to Noir, I would say yes with that comparison. On the other hand, 1 million, I see where people are saying that it smells like 1 million a little bit, like a subdued 1 million, but it's not like that's not the first thing that would come to mind, just because of the fact that 1 million has this really loud kind of bubblegummy type of a vibe to it that really to me is unmistakable. And this, while it has some similar elements to it, it doesn't come off as the same for me. So I would not really say that if somebody asked me, is this like a subdued version, sorry about the train, is this a subdued version of 1 million, I would say no. It's a little bit more of a different version than it. Alright? Spray wise, I go about 4 sprays on this one. I go, generally to this, to the wrists, to the chest area, and sometimes I'll spray like the back of my neck. That's pretty much where I go with this one. Performance wise, already touched upon, but the season and the occasion, it is still a pretty versatile fragrance despite being a little bit more of a darker fragrance. So you can wear it casually, you can wear it to work, you can wear it on a date. The only stipulation that I would say is that more fits a person who is a little bit more dressed up than not. So keep that in mind. Age group wise, I think you have to be a little bit more mature on the 25 plus side. And as far as when, I don't really see any restriction in terms of season as to when you can wear this one. Though if you wear it in the summer, I would just say be a little bit easier on the trigger, because if it's, really warm out in the morning, especially, and when you first apply it, you'll quite possibly offend some people when you're wearing it, but just be careful with it is all I'm going to say. And compliment-wise, I did get a compliment with this one. I was actually wearing it on the subway, and I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with New York subways, but they can get quite packed, and it was quite packed at that point, and a woman kind of smelled me as we were, pretty much I was holding the strap basically, or not the strap, but the bar. And she was holding the bar, and she kind of smelled me, and then as it kind of cleared up a little bit, she was like, "Oh, you smell good. What is that fragrance that you're wearing?" And I told her. She was like, "Oh, I should, remember to get it so I can get it for my husband." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So that was kind of the compliment that I got from that. All right? So if I'm going to go ahead and give this fragrance a rating, I give a rating an 8 out of 10. The reason I give it an 8 out of 10 is it's a very solid fragrance. It's a fragrance that if you're looking for a night out fragrance, a casual fragrance, a fragrance that can almost double as a signature scent for well-dressed people, I would say definitely you want to look into this one and get this one. I think it's a little bit more of a safe, dark scent, if that makes any sense. Most safe scents tend to be light, and this tends to be safe on the darker side, which is a good thing. Now, the reason why I wouldn't bump up the score higher to like a 9 or a 10 is, number one, the price. Tom Ford fragrances in general are a little bit on the expensive side, and tend to be geared that way. So the reason why price comes a little bit more into it for this, because while you're not getting the exact same thing, there are a couple designers that I can think of off the top of my head that are roughly 50% cheaper than this Tom Ford fragrance. So that's why it would be knocked down one rung. And the other rung that it would be knocked down for is, and it would be knocked down just like half a rung for it, is the projection wise. Because the projection, it does become an issue on sometimes, because there are people that I've seen mention this, and I kind of saw it happen to me at times, and that's sometimes when you put it on and you wear it, you think it's gone. And at first I thought it was olfactory fatigue, but I had people go around smell, and as I got closer I could smell it, but I realized that it wasn't because my nose was tired or anything like that. It was more because of the fact that it just wasn't projecting as strong as it could. And this was pretty early in the fragrance. That doesn't mean that it didn't last the full 8 to 11 hours like I normally get from it. It still did. It just kind of hovered there. And the goal with most fragrances is to have most people smell you. And so I think it hits its niche, but I still am going to take away a little bit of marks just because of the fact that it just sits so close to your skin. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free, send me a note, leave me a message, do whatever you got to do. Thank you, take care of yourselves, and you guys have a great day.